Ramya brings in the key skills which Ramya currently possesses: leadership development, content development, stakeholder engagement and consulting, HR and business partnership, program management, content curation. And apart from that, Ramya also has conducted a lot of sessions in terms of design thinking, and she is a design thinking coach. And in different modes, right? Like person, virtual, and blended, all of that. And today, Ramya will walk us through and help us understand how to apply design thinking for the use case here. Thanks, Ramya. Over to you.
Thanks, Ambika. So I'll just add a little bit about myself. So first of all, lovely to have all of you online. It'll be great if you can switch on your videos on and off during the session. I'm not asking you to be fully on, but it will be nice to see who I'm, interacting with. So whenever it's convenient, when I'm not sharing any content, when we're just speaking, please do switch on your video as well. And when we are sharing content or you're working in your groups, you can switch them off. Can I ask you to switch on your cameras now? I absolutely promise there is no judgment. As you can see, I'm not wearing my best professional face as well. So it's a weekend. You all have a lot going on as well. So I don't expect everyone to be dressed like they are going to an interview, right? But it'll be nice to interact. Design thinking is all about human empathy, and without seeing someone, it's very difficult to replicate that. Okay, I guess I'm out of luck today. We'll move on then. I did my engineering from Vellore Institute of Technology. I've been working in the area of engineering at the start of my career, and then moved into HR about 12 years back. I'm a certified design thinking practitioner from INSEAD, Singapore, and I've coached numerous, business teams in applying design thinking. So that's a little about me. I've been very lucky. I've really enjoyed my career. I've, traveled and worked in the US and Philippines, and in 21 cities across India as well. And the best part of that is I've really met a lot of very interesting people and learned a lot from them as well. So though my role is in learning and development, it's not just about helping others learn and develop. It's also for me to be a lifelong learner and develop myself as well. So there is a great opportunity to do that. For the session today, we are going to be exploring the topic of design thinking. It's something that we can start doing today. It's a very key enabler in innovation. And hopefully, once we start the journey today, you will build your learning on design thinking as we go on as well, right? So when I say design thinking, what comes to your mind? You can use the chat or you can unmute and speak. When I say design thinking, what comes to your mind?
Ramya, if no one is talking, then I think we can end the session now itself, right? We want participation in the session, isn't it?
That would be really appreciated. We can maybe take a baby step and use chat first, and then you can speak. I don't know, did everybody attend my previous session and tell you Ramya is very scary? Please don't answer any of her questions if she asks. Is that the case? I hope not. Maybe we should ask Srishti if it helps to call out a name, because she was the first person to join. I'm hoping, she can carry over a bit of that motivation to the rest of the group. What comes to your mind when I say design thinking, Srishti? There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever comes to your mind is fine.
Ma'am, design thinking, when I think about design thinking, all that comes to my mind is getting a group together and
Hmm.
thinking about solutions or the designs that we can build.
Okay. So solving a problem as a group and thinking about solutions. Very nicely said, Srishti. So only change that I would
Yes.
make is it's less about solutions and it's more about the problem itself. So design thinking is all about loving the problem that you want to solve. Vatsalya has said basic design of the implementation of problem statements so that we have a visual representation. So visual way of problem solving. Okay, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah, visually representing your solutions or problems helps, but that's not all it is about. That's a good effort. Would anybody else want to contribute? So we have, why don't I ask Gayatri then? Gayatri, what would you want to add?
Ma'am, design thinking basically means understanding the problem and
Mm-hmm,
understanding the structure of the problem
mm-hmm.
and trying to implement different methods to solve it. I
Okay,
guess so.
great. Yeah, yeah, it is a problem solving approach, right? But how is it different from a variety of different problem solving approach is what we are going to see today, right? Because there are so many problem solving approaches, but design thinking is quite unique. It is a way to solve human centered and complex problems innovatively. That's why it's very different from, you know, many other types of problem solving techniques that you have there, and we'll get into the detail of that. But before I actually tell you about design thinking and give you the definition and things like that, I want us to do a quick activity, right? This I hope you all like shopping. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So let's talk about a shopping experience. It's the start of the month, so I need to buy all the things that I have to run my household for the next month or so, and I went to the physical shop while shopping, right? I still prefer that because that's where I feel that I get the best deals as compared to online, and I'm trying to be more environmentally conscious. I don't want to add a lot more people on the road delivering my groceries. I don't want to add lot much more paper and plastic. I prefer to go to the grocery shop and I prefer to buy in a shop, right? So let me share with you my previous, most recent grocery shopping experience. I picked up a cart like this, right? It also had a little bit of a, small basket in front. I'd taken my niece along with me, right? So
Ramya,
I put my niece on the front. Yes.
sorry to interrupt. We can only see the slide
Mhm.
introduction to design thinking.
Okay. So I have already moved the slide. Let me try that. Now, can you see?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that, Ambika. So this is the type of cart that I picked up. And while I was shopping, my challenge was that um, if I want to go left, it was going right. If I want to go right, it was going left. There was, the wheels were squeaky and very difficult for me to navigate, right? um, then it was also like the balance was off, right? If I buy 5 kgs of rice and put it first in the cart, after that, till I balance it with some other items, it would be really lopsided and unbalanced when I walk with it. Um, then if I add, some frozen items and things like that, whatever was cold would not remain cold by the end of the shopping trip, and it would make other things wet as well. Um, and because I put my niece in the front basket, I felt it was really a little bit, I would say, unsafe for her because I've read somewhere that children falling from shopping baskets has an incidence of around 20,000 injuries a year in India, right? So that's been my experience so far. um, and I want you to help redesign this shopping cart, right? You can use a paper and a pen. You can just sketch it out. What would you want to do differently? If you have any more questions for me, you can always ask me. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. Maybe just 2 breakout rooms are enough, because it's a small group that's attending. I want you to spend 10 minutes, redesign the shopping cart based on my challenges in navigating it. Come up with as many ideas as possible, and I want you to share back how would you redesign my cart. Any questions before I put you in breakout rooms? Okay. So I am putting you into 2 breakout rooms then. I know a lot of people seem to have joined since I started speaking and I couldn't see you. But is everyone clear on the activity? There is a reaction button, so you can do a thumbs up or something like that as well if you're clear. Okay, your 10 minutes starts now. I see some folks who have not joined a breakout room, Ambika. I'm not sure why that is.
Ah, how many of them have joined, Ramya? Who haven't joined?
I see.
Liana, Abhishek, and Sudarshan, is it?
Yeah,
Liana, Abhishek, Sudarshan?
let the others continue then.
Right, right. Let them continue, but let me check. Liana, are you there? If they are not, if they're just there for the sake of it, I'll remove them because I don't know if Abhishek can even hear. So could you
I
join the
can.
breakout room, Liana, please? What Ramya's created? I don't know if Abhishek can even hear us, Ramya. So I will
Yeah,
remove.
you could remove him if
Yes,
that
yeah, yeah.
helps. Yeah.
Liana, could you please join the breakout room? She's also joined. Now all of them are there.
Okay, we'll give them 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to join one of the rooms for a bit and then the other one for a bit, Ambika. So
Sure, Ramya. Yeah. Then even I will just join another team and see what they're doing, right? I'll just look at that. Ramya.
Yes, Ambika.
Yeah, so you spoke to both the teams, session one and session two.
I joined one breakout. I'm yet to join the other one.
Right, I spoke to them and then they're just
Mhm.
discussing and they're coming up with the problem statement, is what they said. Yeah.
They need to come up with a solution, really, not just a problem statement, just a redesigned card, right?
Sorry, they're researching. That is what they said.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So probably.
Okay.
Ishita, you want to join one of the sessions? Please join
Yes,
one of the
ma'am. My
breakouts.
team is
Yeah.
already. I am not sure how to join one.
There will
I'm
be
trying
choose
to
a
figure out.
session. Can you see choose a session?
Not yet, ma'am. I can see participants at one end, and it just shows me who all are in the meeting, but I can't see anything like
I can
choose a
move her to
session.
the session. I
Sure.
can move her to
Thank you
session
so much,
one.
ma'am.
Sure, Ramya.
My team is in one of the sessions, not sure in which.
I moved you. So whichever team is there, you join that one. It's fine. It doesn't have to be. 11:05, I can close the breakout rooms, right?
Hi, Ramya. I'm back. The other team has some issue, is it? Like they wanted some help. Can you just check?
No. Nothing like that. I don't think anybody said anything about needing help. I can join them. Do you want me to join session one or session two?
No, I told Ishita, she said there's something with them. I said, it's all been handled. You just be part of this group, is what I've told her. So,
Okay.
uh, I don't know which breakout. If Ishita is in
Ishita
breakout
is in
one,
breakout one. Yeah, yeah.
then breakout two. Just you want to check with breakout two if they're okay and they're progressing.
Yeah, it's time to close the breakout almost. Let me All right, welcome back from your breakout rooms. Can someone from each team share your most interesting, exciting, unusual top 2 or 3 ideas? Quickly, one from each team. We don't have much time. We have to quickly move on, please. Why don't I just call Soumyadip? I think I heard you speak in team 2. Why don't you share maybe of all the ideas that you heard, the couple of top ones from your team?
Try to redesign the cart in such a way that the center of gravity uh, is balanced and the entire cart is stabilized, because the only reason the shopping carts tip over or the kids fall is because everything the seating area is towards one end, and so
Mm,
that is the reason it tips over. But then
mm,
again, if you're trying to redesign the cart keeping in mind the safety and all, we can't compromise on the shop area space as well, where we are
mm,
keeping our uh, shopping items. So we were
mm.
still about to come to a conclusion, and I mean, I guess other teams do have better solutions to this. I would like to hear from them as well.
That's okay. So, reducing the center of gravity is a good callback to Physics 101. How would you want to do that? How would you do it? How would you reduce the center of gravity? So, would the bottom of the cart be heavier? Would it be a lower cart? So, what would you do?
Yes, ma'am. We could adjust the height of the seat, or what you just said, ma'am. We can lower the height of the cart as well, again to properly design the
Okay, so maybe a
entire
low
cart
cart
and
with a
keeping in
long
mind the central
handle.
gravity.
A low cart with a
Yes,
tall
ma'am.
handle, so I
That
don't
can
have
be
to
a
bend while pushing it, but it's
yes, ma'am.
still more stable.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, something like a
Yes, ma'am.
child's pram or something like that. Okay, yeah, that's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
good one. Let's hear from team one. I guess I heard uh, Gayatri. Gayatri, do you want to share on behalf of your team? Quickly, please.
Our team, we discuss about
Mhm.
attaching a stroller cart,
Okay,
shopping cart, and also aligning the wheels such a way that will provide good motion, and
okay,
also adding a separate compartment for the frozen food items, uh,
okay.
and also trying to add hooks so that we can hang the clothes that we are going to shop.
That's another good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So the clothes are not getting mixed up with the groceries and all that. And yeah. So I would just like little bit of specificity. Maybe you want to change the material of the wheels or the size of the wheels or make the wheels into, have them like a 360-degree sphere, right? Right. So that they have much more maneuverability rather than, the current look of the wheel, right? So be a bit more specific. Good job, everyone. Though it was maybe in person, there would have been a lot more, interaction. But I think given our challenges of people joining late, not necessarily knowing the problem statement, not being able to see each other, I think you have done creditably well. Yeah. So what you have done is you've actually implemented a design thinking approach to some extent, right? So the way you redesign a shopping cart, right? When we tell people, hey, redesign a shopping cart, very often, especially as technologists, they'll come up with a solution that why don't we add a smart device to it, which you can pair your phone and it will pick list of items from your grocery cart or your shopping list and it will tell you where to get what and so on, right? That's how we typically think about innovation. But in reality, innovation has to be focused so much on what does the user really need, right? As a user, given my problem statement, you had a good understanding of it and you didn't say, let's make it a smart device, right? You looked at it and said, what does this user really need? right? A safer, more easily maneuverable shopping cart, which allows us to keep all the shopping items more securely. And you've come up with some solutions, and these solutions could then be combined, right? You could have a low center of gravity shopping cart with a tall handle, multiple compartments, hooks for clothes, and a attachment for children to hold on to or whatever, right? And that could be a very unique or innovative design. That's really what design thinking is all about. What made this design unique is that you had an understanding of my needs, and that is because of empathy, right? Empathy is really understanding what the user's needs are. So, typical design thinking process has these 5 steps. This is developed by the Stanford Design School. Everywhere it is now a standardized approach to design thinking. More or less, you will see the same 5 steps everywhere, right? Be it um, the Stanford School, be it INSEAD, be it Harvard, whatever it is, right? The 5 phases of design thinking are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, right? So empathize is understanding what the user's needs really are. Defining is actually articulating the problem statement. Ideating it is coming up with the multiple different solutions. Prototyping is creating some sort of representation of the solution. For you, it could have been maybe making a sketch, right? Given that it was a virtual mode, we couldn't have you make a sketch, but maybe making a sketch or maybe creating a shopping cart with, ice cream sticks and rubbers and things like that. That would have made it a prototype. And finally, test. So if you make a small shopping cart with ice cream stick and straw and, rubbers and things like that, you could maybe test it by putting some beans on it, right? To see after putting the beans, how does it maneuver itself and, is it easier or whatever. So that's something that you would do before you actually make a final product out of it, where you're using much bigger and at scale items. The other thing about design thinking is it's not a linear process. Sometimes of course, you empathize first, you define the problem, you ideate, and then you might want to go back to empathize again and show people, okay, here is the solutions we are thinking about. How does it sound to you? Do you feel this would be helpful? Right? Then you try and based on the feedback ideate again. Then you prototype. You show the prototype to your users. You might have to empathize again. You might get a different perspective to the problem. You might define again. And then you go back to prototype again and test. Right? So it's a process that goes in sort of loops. But of these processes, the empathize process is the most important one. It's unique to design thinking, right? If I just say improve a typical shopping cart, chances are we'll get a smart device attachment. But if I say use design thinking to improve the shopping cart, it means that you have to go to the shop, you have to talk to the users of the shopping cart and understand from them what is really the problem, and only then you solve for it. So that's a quick introduction to design thinking. Any thoughts from you all? What do you feel about this design thinking as a process? The way that I've described it with empathizing, do you think it gives any benefits? What kind of benefits does it give you in terms of problem solving? Quickly.
I think
Ma'am,
that
from what you told,
since
like,
okay, so
Sorry, you can just click on, maybe
hi,
use the
Ishita,
react button
continue,
and
Ishita.
okay,
thank you,
go
Samati.
for it.
Uh,
Mm,
from my personal experience, because I also work with the industry for
mhm,
myself, I realized when we actually empathize with what problem statement we want to deal with, try to make it more
mhm,
focused,
mhm,
people have a better chance of connecting with us, trusting the brand or the product that they're going to
mhm,
use, knowing that they
mhm.
would not try to, harm us for their own personal benefit. Like they are going for a
Ab-
purpose and not just to make money. So that way, it
Oh,
really
wonderful.
helps in connecting and maybe establishing that trust in the market.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. Thank you, Ishita. Who else would like to share? Somebody else was speaking. I was unable to see who was speaking, so whoever was speaking earlier, you can speak up now.
Saumati was trying to.
Yeah,
Yes,
Soumyajit,
ma'am.
go ahead.
Ma'am, from what you said, I kind of understood that the entire design thinking process
Mm-hmm.
is relatable to the agile development process. Like, we are not
Yeah.
performing this in a single cycle. We have multiple
Mm-hmm.
cycles to it. And
Mm-hmm.
prototyping is another big thing in design thinking,
Mm-hmm.
which is also same
Mm-hmm.
similar to agile process where we produce prototypes and then move forward with the final solution.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, what Ishita said right now, empathizing with the customer needs, that is, I
Mm-hmm.
feel that is one of the most important steps in the entire design thinking process. That
Yeah.
is my take on what you
Absolutely.
just told for design thinking.
Wonderful. Very well said. Absolutely. And that's why in software product development, design thinking is becoming more and more important, right? I'll give you an example. If I'm building a mobile app for banking today, right? If I make that app like Instagram, chances are, I am not going to really be connecting with my customers, because the customers who are using mobile banking today are very different from the customers who are using Instagram, right? Because mobile banking is now used by farmers, mobile banking is now used by laborers, mobile banking is also used in places where internet connectivity is not good. The average age of the mobile banking user is much bigger than the average age of the Instagram user, right? So they are likely to have maybe vision problems, right? They may need mobile banking in multiple different languages. So today, if I need to get the design a user interface for a mobile banking app and even the features of the mobile banking app, I need to empathize with the right set of users, right? Who may be very different from me, which is why the empathy phase is really, really important. That's where your requirements of the features and the user interface and everything will come from, and it is very relatable to agile. The other business case for using design thinking is that it makes the investment in the proof of concept low, right? You are making a sketch, you are creating a wireframe, you are creating a simple sort of representation of the final product before you put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, right? So it gives that uh, confidence that yes, I am ready to invest in this product because I can see it working on a small scale at least, right? The other thing is it has a direct connect to the stakeholder, so the stakeholder feels that they are co-creating the solution with you, which means that convincing the stakeholder or the user becomes very easy, right? You don't have to go and pitch them or sell them and say, oh, let me tell you why my product is amazing. They are hand in hand with you, right, throughout the entire journey. So they know that the product is really designed for their needs. Some good examples of this are, things like Kickstarter, right? Kickstarter is where you would, do your empathy research with certain users, create the first representation of your product, showcase that product to people and say, okay, I've made, 100 such products, and I'm going to give that, I'm going to raise funding from the users themselves. So if you're not familiar with Kickstarter, you should look it up. But that's a very interesting model, right? So then people who invest in Kickstarter get the first right to use the product. They feed back into the further R&D and improvement of the product. And slowly that 100 base becomes 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever it is. And the initial 100 users get some benefit back in terms of a profit share, because when 100,000 users are paying for that final product, there is economies of scale in it. So look up Kickstarter if you're not aware of what it is, but that's a great example of design thinking in action, more in the entrepreneurial space. But in the technology and innovation space, there are many, many examples, right? Um, it's important to remember that design thinking is not a one size fits all problem solving, right? Of course, there are some problems where you should just do it, right? Think like Nike, just go ahead and solve the problem. If it is not a complex problem, if the solution is very obvious, just go ahead and fix it, right? You don't have to use design thinking. Challenge with design thinking is sometimes we learn about it and we feel that now everything from making a cup of tea to building a hospital, we have to use design thinking everywhere. It's not the case, right? the criteria for design thinking is that the problem should be human centered, right? It should be very deeply connected to the experience of the user, right? The problem should be complex. It should be something which requires multiple different teams and multiple different stakeholders to work with each other on it. So for complex human centered problems, if you want innovative solutions, that's when you use design thinking. Yeah. So let's look at the first step of design thinking, which is the empathize phase. Tim Brown is the CEO of IDEO. IDEO, that's IDEO, is one of the pioneers in implementing design thinking in the industrial scale. And please do look them up. They're amazing. It's a great way to learn about them. And he says that there is no innovation without understanding. So empathize phase is all about understanding the user, right? So what we'll do here is to identify ways in which you can empathize with the user, right? So let's take the same shopping cart example. If I were to ask you to redesign the shopping cart and you have to do the empathy research, what are the different ways in which you can empathize? Quickly, you can use chat or you can speak up. First of all, you all have shopped, so you have direct first person experience, right? What else?
I'm sorry, your voice broke from me. I think my network is not stable. Could you please just speak once?
How would you empathize with users? Take the same shopping cart redesign example. If you were to empathize with the users of the shopping cart, what are some different ways in which you can do it?
Um, this may not be exactly empathy, but say for example, I usually buy stuff for say my mom. I usually buy
Mm,
medicines for her. Maybe when we
mm,
are talking about this, we could put maybe something like, okay, this is the knee cushion, or maybe this is an ointment for you. That's more of recommendation. But I think
mm.
that would also save time for users to actually look up for that stuff that might be useful and hence add to convenience.
Yeah.
That would
So
be.
I'm hearing solutions, right? I'm now looking at the phase of design thinking called empathize phase, and I want you to tell me what are the different ways to empathize with the user, right? Leave aside the shopping cart, right? For any problem statement that you're trying to solve, there is a set of users. You need to empathize with them. How will you empathize with them? How will you understand them? How will you know what their real problems are? So, just for example, right? If you ask people, you know, how do you like using your shopping cart? Chances are 9 out of 10 people will say, yeah, it's okay. They won't necessarily give you the real information, right? Because they don't think about it much. For them, it's one thing out of 800 things they have to do in a day. So just saying, hey, how was your shopping experience? What do you think of your shopping cart is not going to necessarily help you, right?
So I
Okay, good.
think,
I'm seeing.
sorry, ma'am, I interrupted.
Go ahead, go
I
ahead.
think if now at this point that surveys and data cannot be
Mm,
reliable that we're collecting from the user, then maybe we
mhm.
will actually have to switch into their shoes and maybe try using it for a couple of days and see that this is where we as users feel problem because we cannot rely on user data.
Yeah. You can do a combination of things, but that's well said. Okay. There are certain things, maybe about a shopping cart, people will be very truthful, right? There's no downside to it, but there are some other, problem statements for which just giving people a survey won't help because they may not be truthful in the survey, right? So, uh, there are a variety of different ways in which you can do that. See, you can use the immerse, engage, and observe model, right? Where you yourself use the shopping cart and you use the Big Bazaar one, you use the Star Bazaar one, you use the, you know, other markets, and you take the journey yourself, right? Then the other thing you can do is you can also shadow the journey. You can go with somebody who's using, right? But there you can say, okay, let me see how a 60-year-old auntie uses the shopping cart. So maybe team one, I will go and shadow a 60-year-old auntie. Team two, let me go and shadow a younger lady with young kids who takes her kids when she is shopping, where she doesn't have any other place to leave them. Right? How is the experience for them? Let me see, young professionals who are in a hurry, they are returning home from office, they just have to stop by and, pick up three or four things. Maybe they use a basket instead of cart. Let's observe them. So you shadow the journey, you observe the user. You can also interview the user. You can ask them, depending on the different types of users, you can ask them, hey, how do you like using the shopping cart? You know, what would make it easier for you? What makes it difficult? You can, use feedback forms. You can bring in some insights from analytics. Maybe shops themselves will tell you that in peak hour, in 1 hour, we get, you know we process 70 customers, and if our shopping carts were faster, we could process, or more streamlined, better organized, we could process 80 customers, right? You can talk to the people who work in the supermarkets, right, who maintain the shopping carts, who help people because shops are abandoned here and there, and they have to restock and they have to bring the shopping carts back. So talk to a variety of different users, and that will give you insights on how to create the shopping cart and how to create a better experience altogether. Once you have done that, you can create a persona. You can say that, okay, you know most of my users tend to be uh, men or women within a certain of age group with these kind of likes, dislikes, problems, and needs. You create the persona, and then you visualize the journey from the time they walk into the shopping market, they pick up the cart till they return the cart at the end. What does their journey look like? So these are the ways in which you can empathize with the user. Let me pause here. If you have any questions, what would be the benefit of doing this? What comes to your mind when I say, okay, use immerse, observe, engage model, create the user persona, create the journey? What do you think? Is it worth doing all that? Why is it worth doing all that?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think
Because we, throughout the design thinking process, we are following a user-centric approach. So at any point, we should take care that user is satisfied with our solution. We could have subjective ideas about our solution that whether that is perfect. On the other hand, the user, he or she may not have the same feeling about our solution. So in the initial stage itself, we should be clear about the user's uh, idea, what he or she wants.
Absolutely. Well said. Anybody else wants to add?
I think I was also trying to say the same.
Same thing. See, I'll just give you a couple of other things. There are two types of users, right? One is your average user, and then the other is your extreme user, right? Your average user in this shopping cart example could be, woman between the age of 25 and 45, who does her grocery shopping for the house. Your extreme user could be 75-year-old man or woman who shops alone because he or she lives alone, is therefore, uncomfortable with online buying, right? May not be so tech savvy. So they have to come in person to a shop and shop. Now, when you design an shopping cart, should you design it for that 75-year-old person, or should you design it for the first case, 25 to 45 woman? From a business case point of view, which would you prefer? Tomorrow, if you have to decide to put your innovation dollars in something, what would you prefer?
I think I would target the youth more because they will be using it for longer duration. I mean, no,
Okay.
not saying that the old people will die soon, but it's but like they are
Okay.
more likely to use it for longer duration.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any counter views? Okay. See, there's no right or wrong answer here. Okay. Just think about the consideration, right? Younger people are also moving more to online shopping than ever before. That's one thing to keep in mind, right? So, is your user likely to be the elderly person? Second thing, think about this is that if I design for an elderly person, actually it's easy for everybody to use, right? So just imagine in your buildings, right? You have accessibility, right? So wherever there are stairs, you also have ramps because in case somebody uses a wheelchair, they need a ramp to get around, right? So a wheelchair user is an extreme user, right? Less than 1% or even 0.5% of your population in the college is going to be a wheelchair user, but still your college has ramps everywhere, wherever there are stairs, right? Because accessibility requires that. Now, when you have a ramp, even though it is for that 0.5% of users, tomorrow any of us could have a sports injury and we might have a plaster on our leg, right? So for us, also ramp will be useful. Tomorrow there could be a medical emergency in the hospital because of which we have to bring a stretcher inside. Again, a ramp would be useful, right? Tomorrow you could have a fest or bring your family for graduation day, right? And your family might be elderly and they might want to have the convenience of a ramp. So even though the ramp is for such a small group, if you have a ramp, it is beneficial to so many people, right? Or you might be making a project for which you have a prototype, and for you to transfer it or take it from place to place, a ramp is useful, right? Similarly, for any business, you have to take a call whether you want to build something for the average user or you want to build something for the extreme user. No right or wrong answer. But where is the scope for genuine innovation? Right? What will it give you really the ROI is something that you have to look at as innovators. Let me give you example. This is a example of Taxi for Sure. Taxi for Sure is a precursor to the Olas and the Ubers of the world. They were actually sold to Ola when Ola started in India for $500 million, right? So they are the OGs of cab aggregators. And in the starting days, you can see there is a LinkedIn post by the founders of Taxi for Sure. You can, read about it there as well. So this is not what I'm saying. This is what they are saying, right? At the start of Taxi for Sure, they were finding that they had very few bookings per day, no matter how good, how competitive their pricing was, how easy it was to book. It was
Ramya,
a yes,
sorry to disturb. Are you sharing your screen?
yes, I am sharing my screen.
Okay, I can't see. Can others see?
I don't know
No,
why
ma'am.
it just
No,
keeps
ma'am.
stopping.
Okay.
I don't
So
know
we can see
why
a
it
video, but nothing. When you're saying taxi for sure, I was just trying to see the screen. There's nothing here. Oh yeah.
Okay, is that better?
Yes. Now
Were you able
Yeah,
to see
now
the
I can see.
previous slide? Were you able to
No,
see the previous slide of empathize with the user?
I
no,
think
we can
none
only
of these
see what
slides.
you shared just now.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about, empathize with the user. Please do let me know because I'm not that comfortable with WebEx. I'm on Zoom 80% of my life, but I have used only these two slides, right? And before this, the slide that I used was this. Were you able to see this?
I think post the
No.
break sessions, the slides were not shared. So yeah,
Okay.
I just noticed.
I was looking at the slides and using them, but unfortunately
Yeah,
none of you
yeah.
could see. So that's a quick recap.
Right.
You're fine with this? Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and
Yeah,
test.
one
And we
second.
talked about how.
Yeah, Ramya. Ishita, if you don't see the slides, na, please call it out. Okay, so Ramya will know. I am not here all the time. So in case you guys don't see the slide or something, just let Ramya know. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Eh,
Thanks, Ramya.
All right. So just as a recap, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. This is the Stanford five-step model. We talked about how it is, loop. It can, you don't have to just go linearly, but it's iteratively across the different phases. So we already talked about this. Then we moved on to the first phase of empathize, where I talked about the immerse, engage, and observe model, where we looked at taking the journey, shadowing the journey, observing, interviewing, feedback forms, analytics, and talking to stakeholders. So, not just users of the shopping cart, but people who work in the shop, for example, or people who maintain the shopping cart if something goes wrong. Then we talked about creating a persona, which is either the average user or the extreme user of a shopping cart. And we talked about creating a visual, which is from the time that a person picks up the shopping cart until the time they return it, whatever their experience is. I'm using the shopping cart as an example. You can use it for anything, right? Mobile banking app. So, who's my average user? Maybe 25 to 45. Who's my extreme user? Maybe a farmer in, rural Karnataka, right? So, whatever it is, you have to choose whether to focus on the average user or your extreme user. And we also talked about how sometimes extreme users design can be relevant to all. Then I moved on to taxi for sure. This is an example where people feel, people felt that why I'm not getting any bookings on taxi for sure, even though it is such a unique and new solution for Bangalore, right? So what the what the founders did is they took a list of the most regular users of taxi for sure, and they reached out to them and did an interview, right? And very surprisingly, the most regular users of taxi for sure were, are you still able to see my slide?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So the most regular users for taxi for sure were, pregnant women. Okay. And for pregnant women, they had the necessity that for, 8 or 9 months, they would use the cab to work and to have their doctor's appointments. And when they did the empathy map, right, they did not ask the question, um, what do you like about our cab service? What do you dislike about our cab service? They collected stories. They asked, how was your last, commuting experience with us? What was, tell us the story of that. What was memorable about it, right? So what they heard was women don't like it when the driver keeps asking them for directions, right? Whether to go this way or that way. When the driver is rude or the driver refuses to switch on AC. In terms of thinking and feeling, the women felt that I really wish I didn't have to deal with this. If my husband could just drive me, that would be best. How am I going to manage this for 8 months? Right. And every time there is a lot of honking or there is a speed bump on the road, the women feel, afraid, insecure. They also try and stay on the phone for the longest time throughout the journey so that they can create this sense that, okay, I'm not alone. Somebody knows where I am and what I'm doing, who I'm with. Based on this, they came with a key insight. The key insight was that it's about the driver. Car rides are the same, other than that. Now, this is the beauty of the empathy research, right? Otherwise, if you just say, I have, you know, not enough bookings, right? It's very easy to think about it from a marketing point of view and say, okay, let's change our pricing, right? Let's look at it from the point of view of, you know, deals, discounts. Let's run some sort of way to, make people more attracted towards my car. But that's not what really creates innovation, right? This insight that it's about the driver, other than that, car rides are more or less all the same. That is what gave taxi for sure their immediate boost, right? They invested in selecting the drivers during the interview process, hiring process. They made sure all the drivers wore clean uniforms. They made sure that the drivers underwent training, which at the time nobody else was doing. And that enabled them to really attract regular customers. And though the empathy research was done based on pregnant women, it then started, attracting more customers because it was so referenceable. People were so happy with, the hassle-free experience that they were even willing to pay a premium. Going by taxi for sure may cost me $50 more, but I prefer that because it's such a hassle-free experience. That's an example of how empathy research, which has a key insight, a unique insight, which your competitor does not have, can help you become profitable, right? That's, the taxi for sure example and how empathy research helps. Let me just pause here. Any questions? Anybody wants to share any other examples? Any thoughts, comments?
I want to ask, this might not be a very familiar question. If this is very helpful, if we could do this empathy research and could help all the businesses, why is it only limited to only certain businesses? Are all the businesses doing this? Or if they are not, then why not?
See, like I said, it has to be done. Look at the problem statement. Is it a human centered complex problem, right? If I'm going to, for example, make chappals or shoes, right? I have low profit margins. Chappals and shoes have not evolved in design significantly for the last, 500 years. And their customers are more worried about price than anything else, right? So maybe I don't need to do design thinking there. But if I am creating high performance shoes for athletes, right? I can assure you Nike and Adidas are definitely doing lot of user research. So it really depends on your problem statement. Is it human centric? Is it complex? Right? Generally, walking every day is maybe not necessarily as complex a problem statement, but winning an Olympic gold is. So, or, playing in the NBA is. So, for that, you are going to see empathy research. So, the criteria has to meet. And of course, it's a time consuming process. You cannot do empathy research today and release the product tomorrow, right? So, these, criteria should be
Okay.
met.
So for
Yeah,
sorry,
that's a
no.
good question.
Yeah. So, for example, thank you. I want to know that, say, for example, we as students want to develop a product. Now, company has resources, so they could maybe shadow people like that. If we want to develop a project or product or a solution, we cannot actually shadow people. In that case, we want to know, we are trying to make things convenient for people. How do we make it happen?
Not necessarily. See, you can at least interview people, if not shadow them, right? You can actually watch people navigate an app. You can ask people to maybe do a screen recording and share it with you. You may be somewhat limited at this point. I completely agree, but it's worth doing to whatever extent you can do it, right? If you can't absolutely, you know, watch them use a product, okay, see how close you can get to that, right? If the best thing you can do is but interview a lot of different personas and interview them for their stories. Do and that'll help you. If that is also not possible, it's highly confidential, maybe people cannot be interviewed. Is a survey the best you can do? Do the best designed survey possible, but don't skip the step, right? Aim for the most comprehensive way of doing empathy research that you can. If it is absolutely not possible, that's a different story, but very often it is possible. It's just a question of thinking through it, right? Or speak to somebody who has the closest connect with the customer, right? Who is actually a customer service representative, for example. At least that much you should be able to do. So be creative. Think about how close you can get to the customer. If you cannot wear their shoes, see how close you can get to it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Was there any other comments, questions? Okay, then I think let's take a 10-minute break. It's 11:45 now. And when you are in your break, think about possible problem statements for design thinking that you would be interested to solve, right? Ideally, these should be things that you can influence. So if I would encourage you not to maybe take up world peace or, world hunger, for example, right? If you are very passionate about world hunger, you can say, okay, how can I make people in my neighborhood uh, have access to food, right? Or if you're interested in world peace, maybe you can see how can I make my apartment complex WhatsApp group and committee activities more peaceful, right? So it's not that a problem statement is right or wrong. It's about whether you can influence it. So it should be human centered, it should be complex, and it should be within your influence. Each of you think about at least one such problem statement and come back. Time now is 11:45. Please come back at 11:55.
Hi, Ramya. You're able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
We can resume, right?
I have just checked if anybody else is back.
Yeah. Okay. So your
Uh,
voice is, yeah, this is audible. Yes.
okay, great. So just checking if others are back.
Couple of them have dropped out. Ishita has dropped out. Vatsalya has dropped out. Shivani, couple of them have dropped out.
Okay, is it that they would be joining back after the break, or anyway, let
Ideally, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
let
We'll give a couple of minutes.
sure. I can give a couple of minutes more.
Sure. Thanks.
Would you let me know if I can start now, Ambika?
I think we'll start, Ramya.
Sure,
They might slowly join. Yeah.
no worries. So we're talking about empathy, and we were also then looking at how empathy gets you the most unique insight, right? So following the empathize phase, uh, I'll just probably share a couple of examples. We talked about how important it is to, get stories from users. I also talked about a journey map, right? So from the time you start your activity to the time you finish your activity, how is your experience? If that can be identified as a journey, it tells you what is the best opportunity for innovation, right? No matter what problem you're trying to solve, right? There would be different phases in it. If I stick with the, shopping cart example, I take the shopping cart from the queue, I navigate it through the aisles, I wait in the counter, and then I take it to my car to load the groceries, right? And then I have to return it. So in all of these phases, there will be different things that I can improve. But wherever I have the lowest level of satisfaction, right? Where look at step maybe 5 or look at step 9, if I improve that process, that is going to give me the best ROI for innovation. That's going to, make people the happiest, because there are other phases which may not be perfect, but where people are still happy. There's an example of, Sarah wanting to watch a movie. And for her, it is deciding the movie, traveling to the theater, experiencing the movie, and returning, which are the different phases of the experience. So for her to improve the entire movie going experience, where I can make the most impact is if I can minimize travel towards or returning from the theater, right? And that's something that I might want to keep in mind and say, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to give OTT kind of options, because what makes people most unhappy about the movie watching experience is the travel, right? Or if I say no, even though the travel is the most ineffective part, I want to, my business is the movies. I want to make that's not something I can influence. Let me make it easier to decide, right? So decide and buy the ticket, for example. So someone like Book My Show will try to improve the steps 1, 2, and 3 of the process, right? And they may try to influence the step 4 and 5 by giving you, let's say, if you book 5 tickets with us, we will give you a 50 rupees Uber voucher, right? For you to book your next movie visit, whatever that is. So your user journey mapping can help you make a lot of effective decisions for your business, right? So once you finish the empathize phase, you move on to the define phase. In the define phase, you are looking at defining a problem in a way that really helps you focus the solutions. There's a quote by John Dewey which says a problem well defined is a problem half solved. So the different ways in which you can, define a problem. One of these techniques is known as the user plus need plus insight. So I know Ambika tells me that she has given some use cases to all of you. You also have thought of some problem statements during the break. When you define a problem statement, you will use user plus need plus insight, right? So you might say, how might we make it easier for shoppers to maneuver their shopping cart um, with low effort and high safety, right? That's the insight. Some examples that I have here are, how might we help new parents start investments for their child's future, which are but are overwhelmed by choice and don't know how to get started, right? So there may be so many different aspects that a parent has to consider while opening investments, but based on the empathy research, I have realized that it's all about the choice and the process, right? I don't feel confident about making a choice. There are too many plans out there. There are too many options out there. Or I just don't have the time to deal with the process. The process is so difficult. There is so much paperwork. I am so busy as a new parent. I just don't want to deal with it. Right. So depending on my focus area, if I'm a business, I might choose, easy eKYC or home KYC for new parents who want to start investments. Or if process is the challenge for me, if choice is the challenge for me, I would look at maybe a quick app which gives you a 5-minute recommendation. You choose your annual income, you choose the age of the child, you choose where you live, and you choose what education you want to have, want your child to have, and it'll give you your top 2 plans, right? So depending on what my empathy insight is, what my unique need is, I can define my problem statement. The format of the problem statement should be user plus need plus insight. How might we help the user address a specific need based on a unique insight that I have from my empathy research? I'll just take a pause here. Were you able to see my screen? Any, thoughts, comments on what we have discussed so far? Okay. Once you've done the empathize phase, we move on to the ideate phase. I'm sure all of you have done some brainstorming before. Ideate phase is about really coming up with a broad range of possible ideas and not just one good idea, right? It's a phase in which you think about all the different ways in which you can solve the problem, the way that you have defined it, right? If the definition is good, your ideate phase gets a lot of focus. You must be familiar with some brainstorming techniques, right? Where you can do brainstorming, you can do writing, you can do mind mapping. Uh, you know, there are a lot of these techniques that you would be familiar with already. Another important technique is, analogies. You take a look at, if I want to improve BMTC, what learning can I take from the metro service to make BMTC more effective? So that's an analogy. You are trying to use it as an inspiration, right? You might use an inspiration like, people love using Instagram. How can I make my banking app more like Instagram? Or, people who build a habit of going to the gym, right? They overcome a lot of challenges and they do that. So if I want to build a habit of savings and investments, what can I take from a gym membership or gym experience that I can bring to my savings experience? Those are examples of analogies. One new technique that I want to share with you today is the scamper technique. I'll talk more about that. Remember, the ideation phase has two aspects. One is coming up with the options, and second is selecting the options. So in coming up with the options, you have to come up with as many options as possible. It's called divergent thinking. You don't have to limit yourself. You don't have to think whether it is possible, is it feasible, will it work, what will people think of it. You just come up with a broad range of ideas. In the select phase is where you would put in your constraints, put in your restrictions, think about the impact and the effort, and come up with your final solutions, right? Which of these solutions are really workable for you? So let me show you the scamper technique. Scamper is an acronym. It stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to other use, eliminate, rearrange, or reverse. So you take any product or any experience and you look at what can you substitute in it, right? If it is a product, can I substitute the material for it to be lighter, right? Or if it is an application, um, can I substitute the elements of the color so that even people with color and font, so that people with visual disabilities or color blindness can still use it, right? So that's an example of substitute. Combine is how can I combine some steps and activities, resources to make this product or experience more efficient, right? So instead of putting in something requiring 5 clicks, can I do it in 3 clicks, right? Can I give a people an option to do things uh, faster by combining them, which means that you fill in your details once and you don't have to fill them again. We'll just keep using it for memory, for example. Adapt, how can you borrow features from something from a different field or a different product which you feel that this would be helpful, right? So for example, you have a button on the app which allows you to reach a chatbot, right? That's something that you could use based on a feature that you could have seen in, let's say, the fire alarm, right? In your physical buildings you pull the fire alarm, but in an app it could be a one click option to start a chat or say SOS, right? You can modify the appearance of something. You could find ways to put things to other use. For example, you are capturing a certain use case in an app. Can you use the same app for other use cases as well? Can you eliminate any unnecessary steps or activities? Why should I use a password if I can use biometric? Or if you can rearrange and reverse. So a example that I always think of is how the T20 format has evolved, right? I'm not saying that people sat in a room and used scamper technique to come up with a T20 format. So the ways of thinking came first, and then it was connected to and created as a scamper technique. So when people thought that, test cricket is not making money, it takes too long, it doesn't attract the young generation, it doesn't have so much action, right? How did they really, adapt it? Is they said, okay, why can't we make cricket like a soccer game? Instead of 5 days, can it be, 4 hours, right? Why can't we have more of the action packed experience, right? So why don't we allow substitute fielders so that teams can, bring in their strengths, right? Why don't we eliminate the walk up to the pavilion and walk back to the pavilion and the long breaks, right? Let's have a dugout. Let's have, a 2 minute break or a 5 minute break, right? Um, how can we eliminate certain time wasters, right? Slow over rates, for example. If we want to eliminate slow over rates, let's introduce a penalty, right? Which means that if you don't bowl quickly enough, you're going to get a penalty. And by using all of these different ways of thinking, the newer format was introduced. You could think of it as T20 or 100 or whatever, right? So the scamper technique is really well used in, reimagining products and services where and usually if we just think about it without a technique like this, we may come up with some 3 or 4 ideas, right? We may come up with a combine or a modify or an eliminate. But if we force ourselves to go through the SCAMPER, we will come up with more ideas as well. And that allows us to be more innovative in reimagining the product or service. Let me take a quick pause here. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Good to continue? Any comments, questions, or thoughts? Okay, then let's continue. So once you have finished the ideating phase, can you still see my screen?
Yes, Ramya.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ambika. So once you've completed uh, ideation phase, anyone remembers what's the next phase? Okay, that's a trick question. In the ideate phase itself, there is a selection criteria, right? Let's say you come up with 15 ideas. Obviously, you can't implement all 15 ideas, right? You'll have to think, what are my top 3 or 4 ideas? So you look at it from the lens of feasibility, desirability, and viability. So based on the resources and technology available, is it feasible? Is it really addressing the need for the user that we identified in the empathy research? It has to be valuable, right? I'm not creating an app just for the sake of creating one. Is it desirable for the user? And viability, does it make sense for a business? So if the business is focused on, a certain domain, a certain type of user, a certain product or service, my idea has to take that forward, right? Doesn't make sense for it to be completely different from that. And increasingly, you want to look at sustainability and accessibility as well. Is this a sustainable idea, right? What is going to be the environmental impact of it? What's going to be the scalability of it? And is it accessible? How can we make sure that most people can use this product or application? So you could give each idea a score on feasibility, desirability, and viability. Something could be very feasible, 5 out of 5, but desirability doesn't really address the need for the user. It might be 1 out of 5. And viability, it might be 2 out of 5. It's not really well aligned. A different idea could be less feasible, right? 2 out of 5. But desirability, it could be 5 out of 5. And in terms of relevance to the organization, it could be 5 out of 5. Maybe we need to think about how to make it more feasible. It could be a winning idea, right? So feasibility, desirability, and viability is your key lens through which you select an idea. Another way to look at it is through effort impact matrix. Put your ideas into 4 quadrants. Some of your ideas will be low effort but also have low impact. Some of your ideas could be low effort but high impact. Some of your ideas could be um, high effort but low impact, and some of your ideas could be high effort and high impact. Quadrant 1 obviously it would be a winning quadrant. You have, with less investment of resources, less investment of time and effort, if you can have a high impact, that's a winning idea. You definitely don't want to waste any time and effort on low impact, low effort. In terms of high effort, low impact, that's to be avoided unless you can find a way to make it more efficient. If it is high effort and high impact, it's definitely worth a long term plan with some opportunities to see, can we make it a bit lower effort? Is there a way to increase efficiency, reduce costs, budgets, and things like that? So these are the two ways in which you could use a selection criteria. So if we think back to our, you know, uh, 5 steps of design thinking, what we have done is we have completed empathize, define, ideate, the 3 steps, right? Now the 4th step comes up, which is your prototype. So once you have an idea, you can't immediately spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to build it, right? It makes sense to prototype and test. The only source of knowledge is experience. Theoretically, your product or your idea could be very good, but what if, you know, it takes a lot of money? Can you take such a risk? But if you, you know, prototype and test it, that will give you some confidence around how you can actually build that product, right? You may any tweaks you need to make, anything that you want to improve. For this, I want us to watch a video. Let me try sharing my screen with the video, and then after watching, we can have a quick discussion. I'll have to change my screen share. I'm just sharing my screen. Are you able to see YouTube?
Not yet, Ramya. Your screen is not being shared.
I see a notification saying you are sharing your entire screen. Still nothing?
No.
Let's try again. Okay, stop sharing. Now let me share. Select window or screen. I have said entire screen and allow. So did that help?
We'll just give a few more seconds. Sometimes there might be a lag.
Any luck?
No. Can others see?
Excuse me, ma'am, it's visible for me. Like, yeah, the YouTube screen. You're trying to
Oh,
play a video.
yes, that's right. Okay. Let me put it on full screen. Are you able to see the full screen?
For me, it's visible, ma'am. I'm not sure about the others.
Okay. That's okay. If it's visible for you, that's fine. I'm sure if others are not able to see, they would have told us. Let me play the video now and let's see if you're able to hear it. Were you able to hear sound?
Just now you played, ma'am.
No,
It's
ma'am.
not.
Yeah, I just played now. Were you able to hear sound?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Can I just share this link on the chat? Will you all watch it and come back? Let's simplify. I'll share this link on the chat. You watch it. It'll take, I think, 3 minutes. You can watch the video. It's only a 1.5 minute video. Why don't you watch it and come back? Yeah. Finished watching? Yes? Have you all finished watching? So, if anyone would like to share your takeaways from watching the prototype, this clip is from a movie called The Founder. I would highly recommend anyone, especially those who are interested in innovation or entrepreneurship, to really look at, try and watch this movie. So, why don't we hear any of your takeaways? You can use the chat and share your takeaways if you like. So, yeah. So, key takeaways for anyone would be that it's really important to test. We can be creative in prototyping. For software prototyping, there are, tools out there that are available which can, really mimic the experience for the user. If they click here, what happens in the next screen and so on. That makes it very useful for you to give people a feel for what it's like to use the prototype. You can use role plays, you can tell stories, you can create wireframes, you can create digital prototypes, you can create paper and pen prototypes. There are lots of different ways in which you can create prototypes, right? I think there were a couple of digital prototyping tools that we had talked about in the previous session as well. So all of these, the idea is for you to prototype, get feedback from stakeholders, and then see if you need to change anything about the product or the service or the app that you are designing. With that, you would have completed the entire, design thinking framework. Now, depending on whether you have a few weeks or a few days to spend on design thinking, this is how you would go about it fully. Now, given that you are looking at doing this for your use case, for you to really apply design thinking there, you would need to identify the set of stakeholders, users who are using, who are affected by that problem, secondary users, decision makers, investors. Make a list of them, make a list of questions, find opportunities to interview them, identify the insight, then define your problem using the user plus need plus insight framework. Then, based on the defined problem, ideate to come up with a set of possible solutions, which you can then rank based on feasibility, viability, and desirability. Then you can prototype your solution, get additional feedback from users, from stakeholders, investors, and then test it out. This will help you come up with, your final submission to the set of stakeholders so that they can tell you, how scalable, how viable your solution is for their business and their problem statement. So with that, we have completed like a quick overview of design thinking. You can, use this in your um, assigned use cases, come up with your stakeholders, come up with a definition, and send it to Ambika. And between she and I, will be happy to review it and give you any feedback as well. I think with that, I've covered everything that I needed to cover. If anyone has any questions, maybe we can